Welcome to the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast with your host, Tom Singer. In each episode, we explore the interesting lives of business leaders, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and others who have a healthy dose of the entrepreneurial spirit. It is time to explore something cool. Now, here is your host, Tom Singer.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. Thank you for pulling your chair up to the Cool Kids table. I don't know if this is the first time you've ever tuned in to listen to an episode of this podcast, or if you're here for episode number 401. But either way, I really appreciate it. What I did when I started this show is I really tried to create a place where we could bring really smart people who would tell their stories, their adventures in entrepreneurship, because I really believe that success leaves clues. And today we're going to talk to a really successful entrepreneur who I think is going to share a lot of ideas and a lot of inspiration. But before we get started, I have to thank the first sponsor of this episode. And many of you offer physical products to your fans and your customers. But dealing with the physical stuff, that can be a pain and it steals your precious time. Well, my friends over at Amplifier, they blend order fulfillment, screen printing, and on-demand production into a single self-service platform that you control. They can integrate with your e-commerce shop and help drive any giveaway campaigns that you do. They are great for large internet powerhouses and entrepreneurs who are just starting out. On demand means no inventory risk, and as you grow, you can stock up on inventory, and Amplifier will handle that for you as well. Jump over to amplifier.com/coolthings and sign up today. Now, today we are going to talk to somebody who has been an entrepreneur for 25 years. If you listened to the episode I did a few weeks ago with Pierre from Firehook, at the end I asked him, who's an entrepreneur who you admire? And he told me that it was Josh Frey. Well, I looked up Josh Frey and decided I had to have him on the show. That happens every now and then. Someone gives me a name that I've never heard of, and it turns out they're really cool. And he is the swag coach. And he has been an entrepreneur for 25 years. He started when he was 22 years old, and he's never looked back. So Josh, welcome to Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do.
Thank you for having me, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So why don't you tell everybody kind of who is Josh Frey and what is the swag coach all about?
Sure. So let me give you a quick background just on my entrepreneurial journey, and then I'll tell you how it led to the Swag Coach program, if that's okay.
Sure.
I got my entrepreneurial spark at the University of Wisconsin in Madison in 1992 when my brother and I converted an old postal truck into an ice cream truck. And we basically had an ice cream route, which was awesome during college, and had our own business, and it really kind of catapulted me into working for myself versus going and working for somebody else. And really since then, I've kind of started my own businesses and have had my own thing right out of college. So I haven't worked for anybody, and I've kind of learned through hard knocks the lessons learned in terms of what it takes to kind of be a successful entrepreneur in your own right. And it's been a long but fruitful journey. And so my first 10 to 15 years really were about kind of figuring out the entrepreneurial game and the playing field. And once I kind of figured that out, I know you said that there were a lot of smart people you interview. I don't know if I would necessarily be one of them because it took me a while to figure things out here. But once I kind of figured out where I wanted to play ball, my career started to blossom and my business started to grow. And so I started off actually in college doing care packages for college kids. I would get parents to send care packages during exam time. And then when I graduated from college, I tried to expand that to a national market. And what happened was we started to morph from college care packages to corporate care packages and corporate gifts, which got me into the promotional business. So actually, I heard your advertisement. I'm familiar with that company. And that's sort of the space I play in. So I'm in the promotional merchandise or the swag industry. It's a $22 billion industry with basically no barriers to entry, and the majority of people are pulling from the same supply chain. So, we sell swag, pens, mugs, logoed stuff. And I've learned that business over the course of my career, first starting off where clients would provide it to me for my gift packaging. And then I learned how to source those products and be a distributor. And then I learned what parts of the business I liked and didn't like, and actually rolled that into a coaching model called the Swag Coach program, where I basically teach people how to start their own promotional products distributorships. So that was a long-winded way of saying what I do.
No, that's awesome. There's two things you touched on that really kind of inspired me. One is that it took you the first 10 years to really figure out the entrepreneurship game, and I think that's really common. I'm coming up on my 10th anniversary of working for myself as a professional speaker and corporate trainer, going into association meetings and like company sales meetings, and I'm just now sort of finding my sea legs. I mean, I've been successful. I was at an entrepreneur's sort of boot camp type program recently, and the one guy said, of everybody who's ever wanted to make their income being a speaker, how many people actually earn, $250,000 a year? And, we don't know the numbers, but the people in the room decided that, to have done that for several years, I had to be in the top 1% of people who set out to do what I do. And I thought, wow, that might very well be true. And I suddenly realized that, to do more, I'm just now figuring out what I'm doing. So I think sometimes it takes a long time, and I liked your honesty that, you bounced around for 10 years to figure it out, and then boom, things started happening. So that was the first thing. The second thing you said that really resonated with me was how you went out and did it, and then you started a program where you taught other people how to do the promotional products game. There are so many people out there who teach who've never done. I mean, it's true in the world of speakers. There's all kinds of courses. How to get rich speaking. And the only way the guy makes any money is teaching the course. They've never made any money actually as a speaker. And so I love the fact that before you taught, you did. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, in fact, just along those lines, I'll kind of address those in reverse. I mean, my whole angle, which I feel very comfortable in, is that I'm a frontline sales coach. So I'm an active, I still sell. I have a business called On Sale Promos. I have my own book of clients I still work with. And so I'm learning every day on the front line. I'm learning both from my clients, and I'm learning from the people that I'm coaching, which is kind of cool. So by being a frontline sales coach, I'm the exact opposite of a consultant or a traditional coach that, whether they've done it in the past or have never done it, I'm an active, I'm sharing with people best practices that I'm currently doing. So that gives me the confidence to know, like, hey, look, there are lots of ways to skin the cat in terms of how to sell, how to build your business, how to run, your own promotional business. I'm sharing my own experience in real time, which, as far as I've seen in my industry, it's a bit of an anomaly. So that's been one thing that I really enjoy, because I'm a road less traveled. I like to do things differently. I don't want to be like everybody. And even though I've chosen an industry that's commoditized, where there's 350,000 salespeople pretty much pulling from the same supply chain, I like to position myself as doing something differently and helping people do things differently. So it ties in with what I want, which is ultimately, to spawn entrepreneurs. I'm a huge proponent of entrepreneurship. It's been a wonderful journey for me. I've learned a lot of lessons, and I think that especially in the promotional market, there's a lot of opportunities to teach people how to do some of these best practices so they can, cut their learning curve a bit and not make the same mistakes that I made, and have a wonderful lifestyle business. So I love that piece. There was another thing I was going to actually mention, but being a typical entrepreneur who's easily distracted, I forget what the first thing was that you said.
I talked about the fact that it took 10 years to really get your sea legs.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, it's funny because, I'm sure you have a lot of people out there that are entrepreneurs that listen or are thinking about starting their own business. And, for me, I started a business where it was something it was easy for me to get my brain around. And then I got stuck in this spot of selling gifts, selling promotional merchandise. And, to me, the product is not my passion. It really is the business strategy and helping people on the entrepreneurial side of things. So I love watching people start their own business and helping them grow it, and seeing them being empowered with the freedoms of entrepreneur and the lifestyle and the schedules, and all the glory of entrepreneurship. But obviously it takes a lot to get there. But for me personally, it just took a while to find my sweet spot, and what ultimately was my sweet spot in this business and how I got to start the Swag Coach program is I had a moment with a business partner of mine. And so if you'll give me 2 minutes, I'll tell you a quick story, which is how I got to where I am, which is basically, I had a promotional business, which I still have to this day, called On Sale Promos. I had someone that was involved in the business that was younger than I was, hungrier than I was, more motivated to kind of help grow that side of the business. And I negotiated with this person for about 9 months to buy into the business, and not buy the majority, but buy a huge chunk of the business, and then basically run it so I could then go and do other entrepreneurial ventures. And after negotiating and literally sitting down at the conference table, I'll never forget the day, back and forth with the attorneys, hand them the contract. It's just a matter of, signing off. And he pushes the document back and he's like, I can't do this. And I quit. And so I'm like, wait a second, you want to quit? I want to quit. So I really had to kind of circle back mentally and figure out, well, what the hell am I going to do? Because I don't want to be a salesperson my whole life. I need to figure out a business model that works for me. And so I'm really involved with this entrepreneurial group called EO. That's how I know Pierre. That's how I know a lot of entrepreneurs who have, just a wide array of businesses and that are successful and have kind of started from the ground up. And so one of the things that we have is called a forum. I don't know. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, I'm
familiar with EO.
I did the EO Accelerator several years ago. My business isn't large enough to be an EO member, but I'm a huge fan of EO.
Oh, okay. So I run the EO DC Accelerator program just to kind of get a little.
Yeah, I learned a whole bunch about the sort of the money side of business and the marketing side of business, and it was a great program. I made a lot of friends in EO.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so with Accelerator, there are accountability groups. In EO, we have forums, which are kind of sort of the same, sort of. Forum is 6 to 8 people, non-competitive businesses, and we basically share, business and personal issues. It's like group therapy for entrepreneurs. So I actually went back to my forum after this experience of, what I thought was my future partner saying I'm out. And I presented to them this idea of, well, if you were going to reinvent yourself or you were going to invest in a business with your experience and know-how, what are the components of the business? Like, what does that look like to you? So I kind of made this master list of all the parts of business that they were looking at, kind of like from the eyes of an entrepreneur. And then I kind of made a list of all the parts of the business that I was looking for. So I had this massive list of kind of these attributes of what a business would look like if I was going to reinvent myself. And then I took it a step further and I said, okay, well, of these, like, what are the things that I'm really good at and that I really enjoy? And then the rest of it, whether I'm good at them, if I hate them, they all went to the other side of the list. And so I built this business model predicated on parts of the business that I love and enjoy. And so my business model is all predicated on outsourcing. So, a lot of people in the promotional industry or in business in general do all the work under their roof. And they think, and maybe they have to, depending on their business, I've got to hire up. I've got to staff up. I've got to get resources to fund the growth of my business. Well, for me, I outsource all the back office work. I plug into a partner that does the admin, that does the accounting, that does all these parts, these what I call non-revenue generating parts of the business, to free me up to solely focus on sales, business development, building long-term relationships with clients and prospects, and just kind of networking and being out doing the parts of the business that I love. And so that's the model I teach people as well. So when my Swag Coach program, people that I work with, they don't have to be have business experience. They don't even have to have sales experience. They just have to be, eager to learn, want to own their own business, and actually be good at connecting with people.
See, I think that's awesome on a couple of accounts. One is just figuring out what are the parts you like to do. I recently attended a podcasters conference, and there was someone there who got to know me, and I'd complimented what a good speaker he was. And it was a little bit different model than what I do. I speak for corporations, or I've gone into groups like EO and talked to the different city, different things. I haven't done anything for EO per se, but I've done entrepreneurial groups, or I do like I said, company meetings. And this guy was in the speak to sell world. He had a big coaching program, and he said, I make more money speaking and getting the people in the audience. They don't pay me to be here, and he was trying to get me to redo the model. And I thought about it because, I got kind of seduced by the numbers that this guy was making, and he was, willing to help coach me and some other stuff. And I woke up the next morning and I go, oh, wait a minute. I don't want to do that. I got really clear on what I love about what I do. And it was really sort of life-changing for me in the fact that it took a lot of the squirrels off of my peripheral vision, and the fact that it's like, oh, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah.
I like doing what I do. I like going in and doing a 3-hour workshop. I don't want to have 40 coaching clients. And yeah, I might be able to make more money, and I might have a different, type business, but that's not what I want to do. I want to speak more. And that clarity really has had some really positive effects on me. So I liked that part of it. The other thing, when you were talking about forum, I created my own. Well, I didn't create it. I was invited to it, but I'm in a mastermind group with 3 other professional speakers. Now, we do fall into sort of a little bit of a competitive range, but not really. And we have become each other's board of directors. So much like an EO forum, many people stay for many, many, many years. We're over 5 years that we've been together, and we get together. We don't live in the same city. We rent a house on Airbnb, and we move in together for 3 days. And
that's awesome.
We go deep on marketing and sales, and and it gets personal, and things like that. We know I'm closer to these 3 people than I probably am to my siblings in some ways. And one of them, her husband and my wife and I all went to Costa Rica for a week. I mean, we're so close that that's the type of stuff we do as a whole group or in little subsets of the group. And so I'm a real big fan of getting involved with some sort of a team that has your back. And so I loved that part of your story that, the forum helped you sort of work through to what that was that you wanted to create. And so I think what advice do you have then for an entrepreneur who's maybe just starting out, or maybe has a young business, who they're thinking, well, I want to get that clarity. I want to do what he has done. What advice would you have for somebody?
How much time do you got, Tom?
Well, it's a half-hour show, but whatever. I like to. I'm a typical EOer. I like to speak from my own experience, and then people can take from it what they wish. Because God knows I've made a ton of mistakes, and I still make a lot of mistakes. So I don't profess to know everything, but I'll share what's worked. When I started off in business, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I was 22 years old, and it was like boxing somebody with your hands tied behind your back and your feet tied together. I had no contacts, I had no money, and I had no business experience. So the way I slowly but eventually was able to kind of learn the tricks of the entrepreneurial trade was by putting together a board of advisors, or a mentoring kind of network. And I found starting up that there are just so many people, myself included, right now that I'm more experienced, that are willing to give back and give their time and share, what they've learned and how they can help other entrepreneurs. And I found it was just as easy as picking up the phone and saying, hey, would you be willing to have a cup of coffee with me? I'd love to pick your brain a little bit about your background, your experience, and ask you a few questions to see if you might be able to help me along the way. I mean, I didn't get one no, right? So, setting up those types of coffees and then formalizing things into an advisory board really, really helped me with my business strategy, with my direction, and with, kind of launching my business. I mean, so I want to go deeper about mentors, because that's something that I speak about, and it's something I care deeply about, and not just for an entrepreneur with a business, but sort of just in general, just having people who you can turn to. I have people who listen to the show know that I talk about Nick and Jake quite a bit. They've become my fake sons for all practical purposes. They're both almost 30. I met them both about maybe one of them I met while he was still in college, but I met the other one 6 years ago when he moved to Austin. And they both sort of were asking me for career advice. And they both sort of then said, would you be my mentor? And I liked them. I said, sure. Like how often would they call me? Well, as it turns out, they called me a lot. I ended up introducing them to each other. They've become friends. Their friend groups have merged, and they're a huge part of my life as friends of mine. But they're half my age, so I am sort of their mentor. But their friends now come to them because I've helped them with both career and relationship advice, and their friends are like, how did you get a mentor? And so we started unpacking it because not everybody gets a mentor who becomes like their surrogate dad. And so we started unpacking what happened. And what I pointed out is they both drove the relationship. It's not like early on I was going to, just call them and go, hi, I'd like to mentor you today. They needed to drive that. They had to, call me and ask me for advice. But what I found is when you do that, people like it. I mean, how do you not honored when someone calls and says, I admire you and the career you've built. Can I ask you for some advice? So let's talk about mentors for a minute. Let's go a little deeper in your thought of how do you do that? How do you get over they don't want to talk to me?
Mm-hmm. So I think of it from both the mentee and the mentor. So let's talk with the mentee. Okay. I think you're spot on. Most people are flattered when somebody reaches out. I think that that being said, it's about the timing of it and being sensitive to respectful of somebody's time, especially if they're busy, right? If you're an entrepreneur or you're leading a company, you're a busy person, and even if you want to be helpful, it's got to be around your terms, or else you can't be helpful. So I think a structure to an actual mentoring relationship is critical, super critical. And so what I mean by that is as a mentee, if I'm going and asking someone for their time, I'm doing my homework up front. I'm not just showing up like unprepared and asking idiotic questions. I need to come prepared. Okay. I need to know what that person's background is. I need to show them that I'm focused and committed to and appreciative of their time, and almost have a little agenda in terms of questions I want to ask them, time for them to give me feedback, and then what are my homework or report back assignments. Because I think, at least in my experience, I'm happy I spend a lot of time mentoring and coaching people, not just in my business, but in the entrepreneurial community. And I love it. But the part I like the best is I'm not looking for the flattery. I'm just looking to know that the experiences that I'm sharing are being listened to, and that the entrepreneur is acting upon them in some way, shape, or form. And then reporting back to me, hey, Josh, we talked about sales and we talked about targeting a niche market. And I went and I tried to do that. And, that worked out really great. I started to build relationships with this specific type of a buyer. Or, hey, I tried to leverage outsourcing like you do, and it really doesn't work for my business because I need to have people that are actually working for me versus partnering with companies. So just the idea of reporting back, I think, is a huge piece that's easy to do, that a lot of people, in my experience, don't.
I so agree. So many people blow that part off. They take the advice and then they either do it or they don't, or it works or it doesn't, but they never tell the person who gave the advice sort of what happened. So it's just floating out there. And I think, again, I think that's part of the reason that these two mentees that I have become so close is they would always, the one joke that we have is they go, how did you know? And my answer is, 'cause I'm old. It's like, 'cause I've seen this, I've seen this before, whether it's a personal life issue or a business issue. And, but they would report back, my boss said exactly what you said he would say about that request. And it was like, well, 'cause he's just a boss, man. We know what motivates him. And you're right. Yeah. That reporting back is the most important part. I think that's really, really key.
Yeah. It also gives energy to the mentor and the relationship in general. Like I get reported back to, I want to help that person even more. I don't, it sounds weird, but
right. No,
I found exactly that to be an effective, so versus just somebody who's taking, I think everything in life is about, give and take. I tend to think of myself as more of a pay it forward person, but I'm taking from the energy of the entrepreneur and motivating myself in that way. And there's, it's a give and take relationship.
Well, one of my friends said, why do you spend so much? You invest a lot of time in both these guys, and I said, because part of it is they sort of keep me young, right? They become two of my closest friends. And there's a festival in Austin called the Austin City Limits Festival. And they always invite me to go things. They'll rent a party barge with their friends, but they're single and they're 30. It's like, that's not where I want to be. First of all, who wants, they're like, when I do go, I went to one of their birthday parties and somebody was like, who brought their dad? And it was like, no, thanks. But they invited me to go to Austin City Limits Fest. And I said no, because I thought I don't want to go spend the day with them. And the last minute, I bought a scalp ticket and I texted them and I said, I'm coming. And they were both so excited. But at the same time, like they knew which bands to go to. I didn't know. And I ended up having a great day. I mean, I had a lot of fun. And so part of it is people go, why do you invest the time? I'm like, well, they keep me relevant. It's not like I go to rap concerts all the time. And so, it was like they keep me relevant on things. And at the same time, it is, I get a sense of pride seeing them, accomplish the things they're trying to accomplish. But when I speak on this to like millennial audiences, and I'll use Nick and Jake as an example, people will line up and go, how do we get you to be my mentor? And,
right.
My joke is, I'm sorry, I'm not taking on any fake children at this point. But, I do give advice as how they can find somebody else maybe in their own area.
Yeah. I mean, look, I feel the same way. It's like staying youthful, learning. For me, it's about learning about that generation, especially the millennial side, and doing the volunteer work I do with the EODC Accelerator program. And I have a board I've assembled of accelerators, so it's cool to interact with people who have businesses that are starting to launch, and people who just think differently because they are of a different generation. And by the way, I've been to Austin City Limits twice. It's amazing.
Well, and it's funny. I don't know how many years it's been going. It's not been around as long as I've been in Austin, but it's been around 18 or 20 years or something. I'd never been before. And so that was kind of fun too. Part of my motto as I get older is try new things. And so my wife really encouraged me. She goes, they invited you to go with them. Why don't you go? Just go buy a wristband. And
awesome.
And so I tried new things and had a great day. So one of the things I talk about is I call it the paradox of potential. We get really excited because we're starting a business and it has so much potential. Or we hire an employee and they've got the perfect background and we know they're going to transform our business. And then a year later, it doesn't really work out. Potential is not a solution. So why do you think, if there's this gap between potential and results that exists out there for many of us, how come you think some entrepreneurs are able to get farther across that gap where others just plummet down? How come some people find that success, even though they both had potential when they started?
Hustle. I know you don't want a one-word answer, but hustle. To me, that's I think where it starts and ends. It's hustle. People willing to roll their sleeves and execute on, on their plans and their goals. A lot of people are good at getting ready to get ready, or then they get distracted with the grass is greener syndrome and all these other things. And just people who are able to stay focused and hustle. They're the entrepreneurs that I've seen do incredibly well. Hyper-focused and hustle.
I have to agree, and I told you I went to this entrepreneurs boot camp, and while I probably have had more hustle than some, I don't have as much as others, and so that's something that I'm trying to reinvent as I go forward. Hey, I've got a couple more questions for you before I let you go, but first I've got to thank the other sponsor of today's episode. So this episode is brought to you by Podfly Productions. Podfly takes the time and the headache out of creating your own podcast. They set you up with the right equipment, training, and guidance to ensure that you're going to sound amazing. Podfly does all the heavy lifting and the technical work so that you can focus on creating great content, growing your audience, and interviewing really cool people like Josh Frey. Hey, if you want to start a podcast, and I know some of you do, jump over to podfly.net/coolthings and check out the offer that they have for the listeners of this show. So, Josh, I call this show Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. What's the coolest thing you're doing with your business right now?
That's a great question. I don't know if it's cool. It's more entrepreneurial nerdy. I'm in an industry where probably about a solid 20 to 30% of the sales force will be dead over the next 10 to 15 years. It's an old white guy's industry. I don't know how else to put it. And we've got some major challenges. It's a huge industry that's a little bit slow to keep up with the times. And so we're having a tough time bringing in new, younger people into our industry. You've got a lot of turnover, like I said, happening over the next 15 years or so. And people are having a tough time trying to figure out succession planning and how to make it all work. And I think I hope my business model is going to address this, because I have a lot of people. The people that I work with through my program are newbies. So these are people that I bring in from outside the industry who want to start their own promo business, versus kind of poaching salespeople or, within the industry, just to be clear. And so bringing in new blood from outside the industry, people with no sales experience. The best way to learn the business is through obviously working with clients and getting opportunities to sell projects. And so that's one piece. And then you have all these people that are trying to figure out what to do with these accounts that they've been working for maybe 3, 4, sometimes 5 decades. And so I think there's an opportunity to bring these people, these two generations together.
That's
the
awesome.
Benefit being, one wants to retire, but they want to make sure that those accounts are handled by someone who's professional. The person who's newer is professionally trained through a program that I run, but they need accounts. So see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's this opportunity for this, I don't know what you'd call it, but a system or ecosystem or whatever to help the entrepreneur who's been in the business a long time to capitalize on their hard work and trust that it's being handled so they don't have to linger, if you will.
Well, there's clearly in a lot of industries a passing of the baton that needs to take place as the baby boomers get older, and it's just a natural, it's the circle of life. But as you were saying this, my mind started spinning. It's not just the professional, the promotional products industry. I mean, this is probably true if you can figure out a model for people who have sort of small or solopreneur businesses. How do they match up to be able to transition and maybe make a little money from doing it and help the next generation get started? You may have discovered something huge.
Yeah. Well, the real estate market, residential real estate's another one, So any sort of, commission-based career where it just, takes a while to ramp up, and then you have people who don't want to let go of what they have because it's how they've made their income. There's the model. So we'll see. No, I think cool. That's pretty cool if I can make it go.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So, Josh, I love to ask everyone who comes on the show, and that's sort of how you ended up on the show. I ask everybody, who is it out there who, in the world of entrepreneurship, in the entrepreneur sphere, if you will, who is it that you admire? Because I think great entrepreneurs, I think they're observers, and this is how we find those real unknown gems out there.
For me, it's a type of entrepreneur as opposed to a specific person. I don't know. Do you want a specific person, or can I tell you the type of entrepreneur?
Type is perfect. There's no rules to my questions. It's perfect.
Okay. One of the cool things about EO is you meet people of all different walks of life. And while I realized that I knew I had a good life growing up, and I was really appreciative of my childhood, and I'm a happy person, I realized through EO that there were just a lot of people that were dealt a different set of cards. And it's unbelievable to me to watch people who have struggled in their childhoods and in their lives transform that experience into something incredibly positive through the launch and growth of their own business. And so I've seen these entrepreneurs who, whether it's a rough childhood growing up, or a chip on their shoulder because they didn't graduate from, they didn't go to college, or they didn't graduate from high school because they were dealing with their family stuff, and watching them hyper focus and hustle their way into launching and growing multi-million-dollar businesses. And I know, like I hope I don't bump up against those people in my own business because I know I can't compete. I don't have the hustle and determination at the level that they do. And so when I meet people like this, I just glom onto them. I want to hear like how they think and, what's motivated them. I care about them, as people. And I've obviously met a lot of these types of people through EO, and I find it incredibly motivational and inspirational. So
I agree.
That type of entrepreneur.
I just heard a guy speak 2 days ago. His name's Rob Decker. He's a personal trainer in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He just moved from being a personal trainer in Los Angeles, so he'd have a better place to raise his kids than Southern California. So he moved to Colorado. But he started off, he was totally abused as a kid, drugs, all kinds of bad choices, arrests, drunk driving problems. And one day he just turned it all around. And to hear his sort of testimony of what he did, and then, how he's starting over with his family, in a whole new place and building a new personal training business. I was sitting there going, wow, I don't have any of that, right? I mean, I grew up, my parents liked each other. They treated the kids well. It's like, wow, the drive that this guy has to have overcome everything he's overcome, and then to be as happy as he was. It was an inspiration. I'm actually going to get him on this show in the next few months.
That's awesome. Yeah. What you just described is the type of person I love to meet.
Yeah. Well,
awesome.
When I have Rob Decker on the show, I will send you the link because you will enjoy his story, because you'll go like, wow, that's a lot worse than I went through. So the last question question I ask everybody is, what do you do to give back to the greater good? Because I think we've got to do things to find a way to leave our mark beyond just making money. I just gave a TED Talk called The Art of Giving Small. Anyone who wants to check that out can go to tomsinger.com/TEDx. And that's the story of how I give back. But I love to hear what the other people on the show, what do you do to serve the greater good?
Yeah. I mean, look, for me, my life has been about being a part of the entrepreneurial community, not just here in the DC area, but through EO, which is global. And I feel like those are my people, and that's where I feel most comfortable. And where I didn't realize that was its own culture when I first started off. It's where I absolutely love to now spend my time giving back. And so, for me, I do a lot of volunteer work, not just in running this EO Accelerator program, but I mentor entrepreneurs as well here in the area. And my goal in life is, I'm 47. My goal is to, I've got this guy who coached me, who's a former monk actually, and it actually has been on the EO speaking circuit a bit, talking about lessons learned while he was in the monastery and applying that to your life and figuring out your life's purpose as it relates to your business and all that stuff. And long story short, he kind of coached me through this kind of plan, this master life plan, which is, first half of my life, spent my time, compiling my assets, my experience and as an entrepreneur. And then the second half of my life, giving it away and giving back. So, putting together a investment fund right now that I can then start to hand out when I'm, on the other side of 50 to entrepreneurs in the community, putting together programs to help entrepreneurs to learn and grow and be successful in their own right. That's
great.
What I'm doing some now, and we'll do more later.
Well, as I said, I've got this whole mantra, make 50 to 75 the best years of my life. And I'm only 2 years into it. I'm only 52. But as I get down to the other side, part of it is exactly what I want to do when I get closer to the 75 mark is I think there's going to be a lot of millennials who are going to be shocked when they get to 50 because it sneaks up on you fast. And I'm trying to learn as much as I can how to make 50 just be a starting line because I want to be able to help other people in business and beyond with that. So we're kind of in symbiotico with that. I hope you and I can keep in touch.
Absolutely. And you're doing it with this podcast. So it's awesome.
So, Josh, if somebody's listening to this and they think, I have to know more about this guy, or the swag coach is what I've been looking for because I've been seeking my way into entrepreneurship, and it sounds like this guy's got a product that could help me, how would people find you?
My email is josh@swagcoach.com, and my website is theswagcoach.com.
That is awesome. Well, Josh, thank you so much. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of EO and always try to support EO in every way that I can. So I love the fact that that is your organization. If you have any other friends in DC or beyond who you think would be good guests, please pass them my way. I'd love to talk to more people like you. So thanks for being on the show. Any last nugget of advice for the listeners?
No, thanks for having me, and good luck to everybody. It's all about getting over your own mindset and just focusing on doing whatever you want, because you can do it. You can start your own business and be as successful as you want. Just do it.
I agree. Nike had it right. Just do it. Hey,
that's right.
Thanks again, Josh. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. I say it every show. If it wasn't for the audience, we wouldn't have a show. Hopefully you have enjoyed this episode. If it's the first time you've ever been here, go back into the archives. There's 400 other shows that you could listen to, or tune in again in a couple of days, because we're going to be back with an interview with somebody just as cool as Josh Frey. But in the meantime, I'm going to challenge you to go out there and in your own way, try new things. And while you're doing it, have a great day.
Thank you for being part of the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast. Without your participation and listening to these conversations, there is no show. Connect with Tom at tomsinger.com and follow him on Twitter at tomsinger.